What's going on, guys? This is going to be our Summary of Markets Week 67. And we're going to get into our crypto and our stocks watch list after that. But let's get started with SPY here. So SPY had a literal perfect to the penny bounce off the 50 moving average on the daily. It was a little deeper on ES, but to the penny on SPY. And funny enough, it got really close to coming back into filling that 400 gap, but it bounced off that 50 moving average instead, so that gap is still unfilled, okay? So a little worrying there, like at the time when it was pulling back to retest the 50-day, I actually took a small short position, which obviously I'm most likely going to lose. We'll have to find out how it opens up on Monday. But I took a small short position thinking that this would be like a little fake out here, and then we would go down to fill the gap, but it doesn't seem like it really wants to fill this gap. And obviously bouncing off 50-day moving average right next to the gap shows you that the buyers are really trying to protect that level. Okay, so we're back above the OTS trail. We didn't actually fill this gap here, so we still have a lower gap right around 413 to 411. So we have a lower gap, and then we also have a small upper gap, just barely unfilled, up to like 418. So those would be like the obvious targets for some sell pressure and some buy pressure moving forward. But your overall bearish target would still be that 400 gap. And then your overall bullish target would still be around 425. Okay. So if you can find some buyers above this gap once we fill that, then look for 425, 428. Moving on to gold. Gold still looks really good here, breaking that very long-term downtrend back above the weekly OTS trail. We're testing the weekly 50 moving average right now. If we can break above that, we can really start to see an impulse up to like 1900, up to like 1950, somewhere around there. The daily still looks really good. You're putting in higher lows, you're putting in higher highs. It's not just a straight vertical climb. It's actually a very efficient climb. You're finding value, pushing higher, finding value, pushing higher. It looks really good. So moving forward, I'd say as long as you stay above like 1800, which is the OTS trail and the previous high, I think we continue higher. The next level that I would be paying most of my attention to would be around 1870, and then look for that like 1920 to 1950. But for right now, commodities look really good. Gold and silver slowly climbing. Moving on to oil, we have that pipeline hack. We've got that gas shortage going on in a lot of states on the East Coast. It doesn't seem like it's greatly affecting the oil price right now, but the chart still looks pretty bullish. You have a OTS buy signal come in on Thursday. Friday had nice confirmation. If you get back above 66, very likely going to go to like $70, maybe 71. This could definitely be kind of like a cup and handle playing out. Okay, so still looks very bullish as long as you hold above like 62 to 63. Moving on to Bitcoin, actually just started selling off right before I started the video. You had a nasty sell-off all the way from like 50,000 all the way down to 45,000. We do have a couple of supports down here around 45 to 42. Major support around 42. That must hold. If you lose 42, it can leak down to like 40, down to 35 very, very quickly. Okay, so we do not want to lose this like single print area around 42 to 44. Very strong support there. You can see that's kind of the last place that we bounced right before we pushed into the all-time high. Okay, but as we can see, this is basically a rollover top, kind of like a head and shoulders. Put in a higher high there, now lower high, right? So next time this bounces, doesn't really matter where. If it puts in a lower high, it's still just continuing that downtrend, okay? So until we break out of that lower high structure, which is going to take some a lot of buy pressure to do, it's not going to be bullish, right? Basically, the biggest confluence level is that 56.6 level that I've been preaching about in Discord. A lot of things line up on that level. Many different techniques give you that same level. So that is the line in the sand. The bulls must reclaim 56.6. Now, obviously, that's very far away. So if you wanted to be bullish in the short term, you could. But long term, we really got to get above that level. Short term, if we start to bounce around 42,000, it looks pretty good. You could bounce probably back into 50,000, maybe 52. Lose that, most likely go down to 35. Moving on to Ethereum. Ethereum is also failing, but it's not as bearish. Like if we go back to Bitcoin, you can see this is clearly entering a downtrend. Ethereum is just pulling back into its uptrend. Okay, so not too bearish there. You are breaking out of your fork, so you did have a bullish fork here. A bullish fork is when like you have a trend, but then you start to ramp up off of that trend into a new trend. So we're breaking that new trend, but it's still in an uptrend overall. Okay. I'd say as long as you stay above the OTS trail here, you could quickly bounce back. But that's a little optimistic. If we do break the OTS trail, look for around 3,000 down to 2,700 as a lot of support. Okay. If we do continue to bounce, look for 43 to 45. Now, we'll keep the theme with crypto, but I will say I don't really have a lot of things on my crypto watch list right now, because when Bitcoin is doing stuff like this, you want to be very careful, because if Bitcoin loses major support, the alts will bleed heavily. Okay, so I'm not really looking to hop in any alts just yet. I really want to see if Bitcoin is going to lose this support, or if this is just kind of a fake out and we're going to bounce back. If it starts to bounce back above like 47, that would be the first signal that it's coming back. If it starts to reclaim like 49, that looks really good. Okay, so if we start to reclaim 49, a little resistance at 51, but I would start looking for alts probably around 49. And then if it starts to really nuke, and it gets down to like 40,000, 37, anywhere around there, you could look to buy the dip on a lot of altcoins if they're bleeding heavily. But when it's in an area like this, where it's not really bouncing off support, it's not really failing the support, it's extremely risky to take altcoin plays, because if this does lose the support, those altcoins are going to bleed 10, 20, 30%. It's going to be very bloody. Okay, but I will take a look at a few of them. We'll see what's kind of moving right now. See if anything's even green anymore. Any of the top movers look good. So Rune, we've been watching Rune in Discord for some time now, and it has looked really good. It's continued its uptrend. As long as it stays above its previous high, above like 17, this looks pretty strong. If it can break that flat top, which it already tried to do, it can definitely go higher, back into that like 21 to 22. Problem is, breaking out like this, when Bitcoin is selling off, is going to be very hard. Ray is entering a very strong support area. So like if you take, it doesn't really matter if you take wicks or bodies, you can kind of see where this support is. So we're kind of losing that support on bodies, but this whole area down here is a lot of support. So if you're somebody that believes in Ray long-term, these areas down around like $8 down to $6 could be a decent dip opportunity. So keep an eye on that. The baskets, obviously, if they have any big dips, they could be some great opportunities. None of these other ones look good. So let's go back to the big movers here. And I definitely want to show, where's BNB here? BNB is pulling back to a big support around 530, also around 500. So if BNB can hold above 500, I think this pullback can easily be bought up. Okay, so keep an eye on that. You are in a sell signal currently on the daily bot, so it's a little worrying. If you bounce above like 605, it looks a lot stronger. Let's see, which one of the one was I looking at earlier? I think it was FTT. Yeah, here it is. So this trend line here on FTT looks really good. Problem is daily sell signal on the bot. You are holding the 50-day moving average, but you definitely want to see a recovery here. If it can get back above like 56 and Bitcoin is no longer resting on that support, I think this looks a lot better. Okay, so keep an eye on FTT. I really think that's pretty much it. There's not many things that I would keep an eye on here during this nasty sell-off on crypto. Litecoin, if it gets down to maybe around 260 to 250, I would keep an eye on that. Major support around like 230. So if it has a nasty nuke here down to 230, how big of a drop would that be? Yeah, it'd be like 20%. That'd be pretty dirty. But if it gets down to that area, I definitely would take a look at that. That would be a decent dip area if Bitcoin is recovering. But that's pretty much it. When Bitcoin does stuff like that, you do not want to be looking at these smaller name coins. And most of the little guys that we were watching, they've already hit most of our targets. Like Matic, for example, Matic hit 4 out of our 5 targets. So a lot of those you can't really trade up here. I think you definitely want to wait for either a nasty liquidation sell-off. I'm talking like 15, 20+% to start buying these dips. Or keep an eye on the baskets, right? Like the holy perp, the mid perp, shit perp. You have alt perp, and then you have the exchange tokens, FTT, BNB. Those are always typically good dip buys when Bitcoin sells off a little bit, but then it starts to recover. Okay. That's it for crypto. Let's move on to stocks. Same thing with stocks. I don't really have a really big watch list right now. I've been trying to close up my positions, lower my equities exposure. Most of my exposure right now is in the crypto market. I've been making a lot more money in crypto than I have in equities, and that's what I do. When I make more money in one market, I focus on that market. Obviously, I follow the money. So right now, I'm focusing on crypto. But the few things that are still on my watch list, I like the energy sector. If oil can break out of that kind of cup and handle, the energy sector will run. So look for around like 56 all the way up to like 60 on that sector. Another sector that I really like is XRT. It's the retail sector. I think with the new guidelines being pushed by the CDC saying that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask while you're basically shopping or in any businesses. And I've already seen that take effect in my real life. So when I'm out at restaurants or grocery stores, like people are not wearing masks at all anymore. So that's already taking effect. I think there's going to be a surge back into the retail sector. They've already been doing very well. So this is not like a sleeper play. They have already been doing very well. Names like Kohl's has been doing very well. American Eagle. What was the one that just had earnings? It was Nordstrom. JWN. They just had earnings, had very good earnings, by the way, and they pushed off of earnings. So keep an eye on that. I think the retail sector can do very well the next few weeks. Watch for that breakout of this kind of previous high here around 95. Another sector that I really like is XLY. But XLY, is it XLY or XLP? I think it's XLY, but they have big holdings in Tesla and Amazon. So instead of trading them, I just went and looked for the biggest retail ETF, which is XRT. So keep an eye on that. Another ETF that I like is IWD, the value ETF, the one that we've been talking about for a few weeks now on Discord and on our videos. If you guys like a more safer play, not in the growth sector, it's not getting beat up as much, the value stocks are doing very well. So keep an eye on IWD. I think this will continue as long as the Dow Jones continues. A few more speculative ETFs that I like is JETS. JETS is definitely one of the big ones. It's the airline ETF. Airlines have been getting beat up a little bit here, as you can see. It's in kind of like a big falling wedge. Even you can consider it almost a elongated bull flag. But if this breaks out of this little downtrend that it's currently in and starts to find value above like 27, I think this can really start to tear all the way up to like 30, which is the COVID gap. And then we could even go higher than that, back into the pre-COVID highs around 32 to 33. Okay, so all these plays that I'm talking about here are all slower plays, but they're much more conservative, right? If you guys are looking for more risky stuff, that's when we start talking about the big tech plays, the growth plays, right? So looking at Microsoft, if it can get above like 250, look for around 255. You can probably hit that upper target. And then you want to look for around 260 as that upper gap. Moving on to Apple, if you can hold above like 128, look for that 130 to 132, and then 133 would be the local target. Facebook, nice bounce there. All of our targets up here have already been hit, but they're going to be resistance moving forward. So like 319 to 321, and then final target being around 326. Netflix also bouncing a little bit here. If it can hold above 488, look for around 500 as the local resistance, and then 513. Break below 488 again, probably go down to like 470. Amazon also bouncing a little bit. If it can hit 3269, look for that 3341 level, and then VWAP around 3373. Finally, Tesla bottoming off that level I gave you guys almost to the penny on that 559. So as long as you hold above that, break above 601, you got to get above this like little downtrend here that we were previously in. It's kind of retesting that same area. If it can hold above like 615, look for like 632, VWAP at 650, and then 666 is that daily pivot. Okay. If you lose this 558 level, it can quickly fall back down to like 500. Okay, so you have to be very careful here. But all right, guys, that is it. That's the summary of markets. That is our watch list for crypto and for stocks. Hopefully you guys like this video. If you guys like the video, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. And I will see you guys for our live stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Peace.